Welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. It's Sunday, already the 23rd of March, and as usual, we have spring storms to talk about and lots of warm weather. Well, here's the weather I'm watching. We have a central U.S. storm system, which is producing both a cold side and a warm side threat. So the snow is interesting across Wisconsin. We'll take a closer look at that. Also, severe storms in the deep south are ongoing as I record this. It's a warm pattern for most of the U.S. Spring is really beginning to spring across almost the entire U.S. now. And a weekend storm. We'll take a look at a little more detail of the long-term ensemble models and see what we can make out of maybe one coming up a week from today. This is being recorded on the 23rd, a Sunday. Take a look at the visible satellite loop, as I love to do. We have this developing, moving storm across the Great Lakes states. And then we have the warm end of that. We'll take closer looks at both of those. Strong jet stream cirrus blowing across there. We have basically a ridge developing out to the west in the western U.S. And we can take a look at the 500 millibar flow and see that we have this negatively tilted trough right here that's moving through the Great Lakes states. A building ridge out west is going to have a lot to do with that warmth I was just talking about that's going to be spreading across almost all of the U.S. Here is the model low pressure track. I like to show this. This just shows basically how models can be used to kind of extract a confidence or lack of confidence. And what you see here is when the dots are clustered together like that, then it's really easy to have a consensus on where to put the low pressure center. When they're more spread out like that with time, then it's like the models are saying, well, some are saying it's up here, some are saying it's down here. So that's the average. And I think that's working out really well. And then this low kind of slows down. You can see because of the spacing between these hours is not as great anymore. And that has an impact on snow. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. Let's take a look at the visible satellite loop for that part of the world. Here's Lake Michigan right here, Chicago right down here. So this is a pretty active weather system. This entire area here is just a blossom of heavier precipitation, a mixture of rain and snow. We'll take a look at radar in a second. And one thing I just love to show, and you know, the atmosphere works this way. You don't always know it because we're very surface biased because we see what's going on down here. But look at these clouds real quick across Lake Huron. See, they're moving from southeast to northwest. And then the clouds on top of those are 90-degree angle to that, moving from southwest to northeast. Just really interesting. Let's take a look at the watches and warnings. So this is a winter storm warning right here through north central Wisconsin, parts of the UP. And then we have a winter weather advisory at that hatched area there through much of southern Michigan and also northern Michigan and parts of Wisconsin as well. Let's take a look at the radar. Here's the latest radar from, actually, I think that's the Milwaukee radar. So you can see precipitation type is snow around Oshkosh and points over to Sheboygan there with rain and cold rain falling around Madison and showers around the Chicago area as well. Let's head south, and we see some blossoming thunderstorms here in this warm part of the storm. You can see some storms right there in east central Arkansas. Other convection, not necessarily severe, but heavy rains in parts of Kentucky. Let's zoom in on that, and they just issued a tornado watch within the last hour for this. I don't know if you can see that stretched out polygon area there. And I was recording this just before 5, so they had a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for that particular storm. And let's take a look at the radar down there. Here's a look at the radar right around 5 o'clock. This is out of Memphis. And you see some pretty good storms just to the northeast of Memphis. They were severe thunderstorm warned, as I showed you. At the present time, they are not. But again, that's in a severe storm area, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about. Well, here's the severe weather outlook, and the storms are just forming on the edge of this, so we don't have to take any of this away right in that area. So it's a 1 out of 5 risk, and then a 2 out of 5 going to that yellow, what was used to be called slight risk, in all that area right there. And that's working out, actually, according to all the trends we just showed you. And there's also a tornado risk that I think gets a little more upscale as we get closer to evening hours when the winds do their little magic. There's enough instability, I think. But the winds are still kind of coming out of that direction. If we can get them to back more out of the south across this area, then that's going to make the low-level spin a little more favorable for tornado development. This is a 5% chance. That's that brown area right there. So that means a 5% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of any point you pick within that brown area. So yeah, it's gone up to 30 or 45 in the past, but 5% is nothing to sneeze at. That's something that people in Mississippi should be looking at. This is the National Weather Service's agreement on what the snow forecast is over the next couple of days. We're seeing over a half foot in these areas of purple across northern Wisconsin and patches of Michigan, the lower peninsula of Michigan, by the way, with the snow going about as far south as maybe Lansing and perhaps into the Milwaukee area. But again, those are trace amounts. If we shift over, remember I showed you that low was traveling through the northeast, so the snow totals are not as great, but 1 to 3 inch snow totals across much of New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and the upstate hill Catskill area of New York State. And I also wanted to show you, this is the snow accumulated for the season. This goes all the way back to September and just adds up the snow. Interesting features on here. Remember the New Orleans snow and the blizzard through parts of Louisiana back in January? That shows up rather abruptly. Also, there's some snow holes, right? There's some donuts, northern Missouri, parts of the Dakotas. But basically, if you see the darker colored purple area right here, that's over a foot of snow. And if you see these areas of yellow, you can see the scale down here. We're going for 3 feet and higher of snow. Some of these areas, lake effect snows especially, right there and right there. 120 inches of snow this season. Pretty interesting. Well, later in the week, this is actually good news for portions of Texas. This is the total precipitation outlook, especially for south central and southeastern Texas. We're talking about a bullseye there of about 3 inches. And the reason I say that's good is the latest drought index that was issued on March 20th. I believe they're going to update that tomorrow, but this hasn't changed much. So this is exceptional drought in this area. So any of these areas that get 2-3 inches of rain, it'll be very welcome indeed. As I was saying, much of the country is going to be above normal. Anything you see that's shaded in the yellow colors or the red colors is above normal. So you see it's a little cool in wake of that low on Monday, but much of the country is experiencing warmth. Denver will be up to 70. We'll go up to 85 in Vegas and 80 in Dallas on Monday. And then we'll move forward to midweek. And again, the cold just follows that low in behind it. But otherwise, we're looking at Denver up to 76 on Wednesday, 70s all the way up to the Canadian border, or just about anyway. And even in the midsection of the country, Dallas at 82 degrees. And then we go ahead to Friday. We're looking at Pierre, South Dakota at 73 degrees and Bismarck at 63. And pretty warm temperatures across much of the U.S. And finally, kind of a sign of a storm coming ashore. You can just tell by looking at the temperature decrease. Let's take a look at that. Well, let's take a look at the 500 millibar pattern. We're using the GFS Global Forecast System Ensemble. It just means they run it many times and alter the conditions, and then we take a mean or an average of what the 500 millibar flow will look like. It kind of gets rid of the outliers a little bit, gives you a more general pattern. This is more useful the further on down the line in time you go. So if we're trying to find out something a week from now, this is maybe a little bit better guide. So let's just go ahead and move forward here. Well, first of all, you can see the current system that I just showed you, that negatively tilted trough right there. And that's causing the snow and the severe weather possibilities there. Now, if we go forward, you'll notice that in time, a huge ridge of high pressure develops over the central U.S. So all of this area right here is going to experience warmth. I showed you how the Northeast is cool, and you can see why now. They're at the base of that little trough, but even that situation will improve with time. And then, so this is looking at Thursday morning, roughly. We have a weak weather system in the South U.S. I don't think that's going to do much. But as I move this forward, you'll start seeing a lot of stronger jet stream winds coming aflow. So this is Saturday morning right here. So this might be a cause for concern for severe weather, depending on whether we can get ample instability and moisture up from the Gulf or not during that time. And I happen to think that we probably will. So that's Saturday morning. And then that moves on through. It looks like a little disturbance. And then Sunday, let's go to Monday morning, right about there. So another very strong jet stream wind pattern coming ashore in California. So I think that the storminess in terms of severe storms, spring storms, is going to increase here, generally speaking, beginning late, about a week from now, over the upcoming weekend, and then into the first week of April. And we've been talking about that for a while. It looks like, some severe weather is certainly going to happen in a couple of rounds across the central and southern U.S. And finally, we'll take a look at the 3, 2, 1. And finally, we'll take a look at the temperature outlook for April. So above normal temperatures from New England down to Florida and across much of the southwestern U.S., including a large swath of New Mexico and also parts of Texas. And then we'll take a look at the precipitation for April. Still above normal, still a La Nina pattern here. Above normal temperatures, bullseye there on Illinois, with below normal temperatures, or precipitation, I should say, in the southwest. Again, I just showed you that drought index, so generally speaking, there's not a whole lot of long-term relief for a lot of those areas that were shaded as drought on that previous graphic. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.